Welcome back to the Festival of Dam 2022. This is track one with a session No Dam is an Island with Dan Puglisi and Rich Casone. And Rich, thank you very much for joining us. Over to you.
Great. Thank you everyone for joining. Today we will be talking No Dam is an Island. My name is Dan Puglisi and I will be covering a little bit about Woodwing and what we do. And Rich will be talking a little bit about integrations. So a quick introduction to Woodwing. Woodwing is a technology company that helps brands, agencies, and publishers to tell their stories. We've been around since about 2000. We have two headquarters. One is based out in Amsterdam, and then our US is based in Detroit, Michigan. So currently we're working in 60 different countries. I would say that 60% of our customers are publishers and the other 40% are agencies and brands. Some of the customers we work with are Hearst, Meredith, and some of the old Time Inc. brands. From a brand perspective, we're working with Yamaha, Coca-Cola, and L'Oreal. So Woodwing's concept is around content orchestration, and that's people and tools working seamlessly together so you can plan, create, and manage, and then distribute your content through any channel. I would say some of the biggest challenges our customers are facing today are either they want to become more efficient the way they work. They have too many manual processes. So from a dam perspective, they either outgrown their dam, or where they're all over the place, where their assets are all over the place. They're either on their server, their desktop, or just maybe they're using Dropbox. From a studio perspective, usually they're using some type of Adobe Suite or Word documents, and they don't have a way to manage that content. They don't know who's working on what. They have the manual processes. Maybe one person's working just together on all different pages. Maybe they're working on newsletters. And they don't really have a place where they can see all of that content and know who's working on what at any given time. So here's how we solve some of these problems. From a dam perspective, it's really that single source of truth where they have one designated location so that everybody in the organization can go in and manage those assets. So you have basically some great search capabilities with either using keywords or a folder structure. All of those assets are enhanced with using metadata so that if you wanted to search something like house, you can go in and put in the keyword house, but then also use the folder structure to make that, break that down a little bit further. Maybe you wanted to look at some JPEGs or PDF documents. So it's really helping you become more efficient with working within the dam. The other piece we have is our content creation platform. A lot of people think that, within the dam, they can solve some of these problems. But as you're looking at different dams, you want to really have a robust system to manage both. So the content creation piece is where you can also go into the platform and manage that content in the creation process through the production process. So that, for instance, if you have a designer or a writer going into the platform, they can work simultaneously. So they're working on these documents together. You would have a sort of outlook of, let's just say, 50 pages of the newsletter. And you can go in there and say, you know what, John is missing some of the design capabilities, or the writer is not finished their document. And you have a way to notify them within the platform, either using Slack or email, or you can just send them an email directly. But there would be also an email in the platform that says, hey, this is a job that you want to look at today. And then they can go in there and actually make and modify those documents. So it's really about helping the teams become more efficient and working together in the platform. So that's a very high level of who we are and what we do. If you have interest in learning more, you can reach out to me directly through dan.puglisi@woodwing.com. But now what I'm going to do is hand it off to Rich, and he's going to talk about integrations. Rich?
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, and that's really the whole point of this dam is not an island thing, like Dan was talking about. There was a time, right, when file management was enough, and then you grew past that, and there was a time when dam was enough, and now we're starting to move to an area where DAM needs to start talking to third-party applications. Now, Dan was talking about our studio application, which is a content creation piece, but it goes so it goes so far beyond that, right? Creative teams are large now. You've got teams of 10 people, teams of 20 people, teams of 100 people, and in the post-pandemic era, they're not sitting in the same location. So all of our apps are distributed in the web as well as our people. And we're relying on those. And there's two ways to go about relying on those. There's the way that I see a lot of people sitting today, and then there's a way to move forward, right? The way that I see things being done today is all of this stuff is sitting on the same stack. And a lot of prospects who talk to us come in and want to continue working in their same stack, right? They've got a number of applications that they have in-house, and they want to hard code integrations to make those things talk to each other. And there's really nothing wrong with that as a short-term solution. But the problem is, as I'm sure you've noticed, your tools are evolving so rapidly that making a commitment to a specific tool today means that you're committed to that tool 5 years from now if you've built an in-house application. But that's not the way we want our stack to look, right? If we take the DAM piece of this, on the DAM side, we're dealing with our permissions, our sharing, our control of versions, our single source of truth, like Dan said, right? All the stuff that we expect from a DAM. For me, there's 4 core pieces of a DAM. There's the organize and search capability. There's the ingestion stuff. How do I get stuff into the DAM? There's the working with things. How do I, once I've found the asset that I want to work with, what can I actually do with that thing? And then how can I collaborate on it? And the integration piece really comes in that third area, right? The idea of how do I work with the things that I want to work with. And there's a number of things that you'll want to do with those assets. Something I run into a lot is PIM, right? Probably a lot of you, if you're in the brand space, you have a product information management system that you need to integrate with, pulling SKUs, product attributes, pricing, and making sure that they match up with the correct assets. A CMS, where you're publishing assets out to a website or to an app. Project management stuff like Monday or Rike or Microsoft Project, editorial workflow software, the Adobe Suite, of course. And right now, a lot of those are sitting isolated by themselves. When you go into the DAM, you could find the piece you want. You have to pull it out. Then you have to push it to that third-party system. And you're constantly sort of juggling all of these files in midair. That's where integration approaches come in. The way I mentioned things are done today, native in-app integrations, pre-built vendor integrations, they work, but they're time intensive and they're costly to build, usually as part of your onboarding process, right? You do your SOW for your DAM, and then you want to build out all these integrations, and you find out that there are all these charges now for services and developer time to build these one-off integrations just for you. And you can really only then focus on a limited number of integrations because you're using up developer time, right? And like I said, you end up being married to those applications that you've invested developing in. For my money, the better way is what has come to be known as iPaaS, right? It's like SaaS, but it's an integration platform as a service. The one you're probably most familiar with if you work with web apps a lot is Zapier, right? It's a sort of platform that sits in the cloud that has a number of connectors, like tendrils, that go out to different applications, and those tendrils have already been built, and what you do is you just stack them one on top of each other. There's customization that needs to be done as far as settings and preferences and specifics to your application, but it's so much simpler than actually going through a development process of those things, right? And I think that's the way to approach looking for a DAM, right? We're DAM centered here. So that's really what we're talking about. And for those of you who are looking for a DAM, you're going to be looking for the things I talked about, right? A robust system that's secure and lives in the web and gives you a single source of truth and has version management and all of that stuff. But I know a lot of you are also looking for features, right? I get these RFPs and I see like must be able to publish to Facebook, must be able to drop markers in video, things like that. Or must be able to manipulate images inside of the app, right? Where you want the application that does those specific content creation features built into the DAM itself. And as you search, right, you find you have a demo with one vendor and they've got the Facebook piece, great, but they don't do the video stuff. And then you have a meeting with another vendor and they do the video stuff, but they don't have the Facebook piece. And you can drive yourself crazy trying to package all of the individual features that you want into a DAM solution. Well, iPaaS is the solution to that, right? If you concentrate when you're looking for a DAM on something that has that core piece that you know is secure, that you know is fast, that you know handles all of the asset types that you want, and that does it in the manner of security that you want, then iPaaS is the way to achieve all of those features. Because it does a number of things. It reduces complexity because the connectors, the programmation for Monday.com, say, talking to the app has already been built. It reduces inflexibility because if you decide to move, say, from one product management piece to another, you just change a connector. You don't have to rebuild an entire thing. They're fast to develop. You're not using a ton of developer time. And in a lot of cases, you can actually design on top of the iPaaS yourself. They reduce specificity. They're more general, right? Because I'm just dropping connectors in. I may even be able to do something like, hey, when I'm moving from Monday to Reich, and I want them to integrate with my DAM, I'm going to leave both integrations alive for a while before I cut one off, right? I can be broader in the way that I integrate across platforms. And they're going to be a ton cheaper. One, because you're only going to have to do these integrations one time for multiple applications. And two, because they're quicker to develop. So you're going to be using a lot less developer resource time, whether that's the services department that you hire at the DAM provider or internally. For us, our solution is called Woodwind Connect, but it doesn't matter. Everybody is moving towards one of these iPaaS. Zapier is a huge one, like I said. Ours sits on top of a solution called Workato. And the reason I have this slide in here is because on the right-hand side, you can see what building out these types of integrations looks like. There's no PHP code over there. There are no API calls. There's just a list of visual indicators, recipes, like building. If you're old like me and you worked on the old Apple script process that were in the original Apples, it's a lot like that, right? Just stacking individual connectors and if-thens on top of each other. And the end pieces are the pieces that the actual developer has to build themselves, and you just plug those in. Now, that's iPaaS. That's the last one in this thing. There are other ways to accomplish this. You can use an API. Almost every modern DAM system has an API, either open or closed. And you can still script on top of that, ping those APIs and do the things that you want. That's a specific solution. And there are cases you may have to do that. That can be a part of your stack. As we move towards iPaaS, APIs are starting to get isolated more behind security walls. So in many cases, you won't actually be able to hit the APIs directly. With our system, that's partly the case. You can still make the API calls, but the API calls have to go through a secondary server before they hit our own server for security reasons. Webhooks are attached to that. Those are event-driven things inside the app itself, where, say, like the metadata changes for a specific asset, and then you want to trigger an event on that in a third-party application. For example, a PIM might, when I ingest an asset, perhaps it triggers going to the PIM and finding the SKU and then pulling down the product information for that. Plugins are sort of larger structures built on top of APIs and webhooks that possibly have a UI interface to them. And then the iPaaS stuff that I'm talking about here, which can do all of the things that APIs, webhooks, and plugins can do, but in this kind of cool visual, non-committal manner. I'm going to just bring up a case study for you to give you an example of how this might work, right? There's a billion types of applications that we can build on top of an iPaaS. I keep going back to PIM because that seems to be something of a priority today, right? I'd say PIM and project management are the two that I see, as well as in third place, probably publishing out to social media, and in fourth place, video. For this is a case study that we did of a DIM matching up with a PIM. Now, a PIM can be an actual dedicated product information system, or it can be something as simple as a Google Sheet or an Excel sheet that lives on a server someplace, or a FileMaker database. One of the titles that I came from Time Magazine, and one of the titles that we worked on at Time Inc. was using a FileMaker database to manage all of their stuff, and we had to integrate the DAM to that. Now, we had to use APIs calls to do it in those days. But here, we would build something using iPass, which is what we did for this case study. The DAM, still events are getting triggered, and those events are then being sent to the iPass, which, like I said, is our Woodwind Connect piece, which is partly Workato and then partly some other things that we built. And then the iPass, in an isolated way, is then communicating off with the PIM itself, or the sheet. And they're going back and forth, right? This case was for Yamaha, and it was for their sales and marketing arena. So it was public. It was product information that was going into marketing brochures and catalogs and things like that. If you're not familiar, Yamaha is a motor company. This is for the European division. They sell some really cool motorcycles. Now, what they're doing is managing brochures and promotional material. And the challenge for them was that because they were pan-European and in some cases pan-global, they had a number of different languages and regionalities that they had to deal with. Primarily it was the language thing, and making sure that the assets matched the correct language for the region that they were producing this material for, without having to recreate the entire brochure or marketing piece every time. So our solution was to build an integration with the DAM piece using our integration model, which is the Workato thing, right? And here's what we built. This is the, we call the publication organizer. This is what our interface looks like. So it's not particularly important that this is the interface. But what I have here is I have all of the products in the PIM system organized into folders. And you'll see that in the next page, what I can do is I can bring up the publication that I'm working on. So I have one, say, template for the marketing brochure. And then I can assign for different versions of that template, different products. So I can grab, say, the English product, the French product, the Spanish product. And that information is constantly updated from the PIM. So I have all of these images, like the image of this guy on the motorcycle, on these 3 motorcycles and the charts, but this text and all of these highlights are coming from the PIM. I'm not storing those in the DAM. I'm simply going out and requesting them based on the SKU that I have. And that goes into the entire publication, right? This is just a view of what all the different layouts look like. And the cool thing is on the side here, you'll see this editions piece. That's where when I change the edition, it goes and it actually just grabs the associated information in a separate language based on the language that I set for that edition, right? So what was this? What did this help, right? What it did is it allowed them to eliminate all of the manual juggling of those pieces. The way it worked before was I would have to open up my InDesign document. I would have to place images on the InDesign document. I would save that, right? Motorcycle _ France. I would open the template again. I would then place my text and my images from Spain, save that. I could do it in layers as well. Regardless, it's a manual process. Here, I only need to build the template once, choose the assigned images, and because the relations already exist in the background, those images are automatically populated. Now, this is a Woodwind thing. This is a Yamaha thing, but it's much broader than that, right? This is an example of what can be done, and it's an example of what you should look for. Yamaha could have gone out and had an RFP that said your DAM must talk to this specific PIM that we have, because that's a requirement for us, and that's going to be the first thing that we look at for a DAM. And they would have had a limited number of DAM providers to go to. There might be somebody out there that has a built-in PIM integration, right? They spent years developing that, and that's their main thing. That's the way we used to do it. Even us, you went 10 years back, we had specific integrations to specific systems, and our partners back then would have recommended a specific PIM to go with the dam because we'd already built that thing. And those came about because customers requested that we build them, and then we were able to resell them and so forth. But now we don't have to do that anymore. I can go out and I can buy the dam that I want to buy, and then I can do my interconnectivity and all of my hybrid stuff using an iPaaS solution, right? And that's simply the reality today. Eventually, you're going to be pushed into that anyway, because, like I said, those APIs are getting pushed further and further behind the paywalls. I mean, the security walls, right? So look, it's a quick view of what I mean when I talk about, right? Look for a dam that has the core features you need, and then find an iPaaS that connects to the applications that you want to work with. Come by our booth if you like, and we'll be happy to talk more about that stuff. And thank you so much for your attention. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of Henry Stewart.